Let there be light, and there was light. So I am Crime Queen, and thank you for joining us. Us meaning, you see, just me, but it's the presence of the 14 gods that I am now acknowledging. And I do acknowledge the called God, the created God, the moved God, the saw God, the said God, the divided God, the made God, the set God, the blessed God, the ended God, caused God, formed God, breathed God, and planted God. So the 14 gods of Genesis, we are Genesis, we are the genes. So I do call upon the assistance of the gods operating appropriately through these presentations. So I had a eureka while preparing myself for these presentations, and I would like to share this with you. And I did sort of meditate on it, whether I ought to share this. So basically, we have been looking at the 14 gods. We have looked at the 14 gods of Genesis, and we have also looked at the Latins of Mother Eve, which is on here on this list. I hope you can see this. This is let there be light, and there was light, and let there be a firmament, and let the waters from the heavens divide the waters, let the earth bring forth grass, let the lights in the firmament give light upon the earth. I am not sure that I'm giving all of it, because I couldn't really write the whole thing down. Let the waters bring forth abundantly all living creatures after its kind. Let the earth bring forth living abundantly, and it says let the earth bring forth living creatures, so I might have got these two mixed up. But the final one is the 8th one, where Mother Eve says, let us make man in our image after our likeness. And of course we read on, and God made man in his own image and likeness. I have covered this aspect, or part of this aspect, because there is so much. This is really recondite information where God made man in his own image and likeness. But just to show you that nothing is really away or estranged from God as we tend to think. That's what I am gathering here. When God made man in his own image and likeness. So Mother Eve, of course, was the one who suggested, let us make man in our image and likeness. And then, of course, we see God made man in his own image and likeness. That is indicative of the different gods that Mother Eve had given contracts to, if you like, of making man in her own image and likeness. Now, we have done the math to see how Mother Eve is inclusive in this. So I'm not sure which of the videos, but I've done more than one video that covers this. But basically, to say God made man in his own image and likeness, we see the word own. We have done this. It's also the word that won, W-O-N, won the contract. We could say, or it is the word that is also now. And this is where Mother Eve becomes really present. It's in the N-O-W. Now, there's another thing. Of course, we have seen that there's a consistency with all the letters here. However, there are two of the words where we have the O in the middle. This is just coming to my attention right now, so I'm not going to pretend that I kind of really worked through it before. But there are two O's here, and that's what of course I would like to concentrate on as well, because the O, as we see, it represents the whole, and this is really like God. God is in this nothingness. We all hear that we are going back into, we return into nothingness. So this knot, for instance, represents this nothingness. Now the word one or on or now equals 7. I'll just do this one here. So it's 5, 6, 5. So this is 16. 1 plus 6 is 7. 7 is where Mother Eve now becomes present. Now, where we see, or how we can see Mother Eve really became present here, is just like being in, that's when Mother Eve was in the form of a serpent, serpent, which also equals 7. And of course, the word serpent is present. That was the gift of knowledge of good and evil given to the children, or I say children, to Adam and Eve. So we have got confused, if you like. We're thinking of Adam and Eve were just two people, although we see a lineage of people outlined in the scriptures that were called Adam. They were called Adam. Likewise, there were more than one entity that was called Eve. This is something for us to bear in mind. It's like the butcher's family, or the smith, or the man. Now we know we call ourselves man somehow, but when it comes to understanding the scriptures, we seem to forget that we are of one, in that sense that Adam was not just one entity, or when it is said and Eve, God took Eve out of Adam, that was as if indicating there were no women before, or that was the first woman. No, the Eves were female, and Adam, of course, were men. And we see, for instance, that even in the lineage of the children of Adam and Eve now, it was men mentioned. But it is very clear that in the story as well, that it is said, and Cain, of course, one of Adam and Eve's sons, which was Cain and Abel, and one killed the other, but Cain was the one who he went out into the Far East. It's always seemed like the Far East. I think it was the East, but got himself a wife. So basically, a wife again would be like that which scripturally would be a mate, a partner, his wife, which would be 7, because the word wife equals 7. So whenever you are with a wife, you are 7, but when you get your wife, which is why it is said you have your other half. We use the term your other half. That means you are of 7 of the God's hair, and then you get your other half, which is another 7. This is the wife now. The wife is your other 7, as whole, because the word 7, or the word 1, for instance, O-N-E, which is 5, 5, 6, adding this together gives us 16. 1 plus 6 equals 7. So we can see that how the story about having your wife, or Adam had his wife, for instance, that was his 7. That was his other 7, his other half. Of course, and they would become 2. And the story actually says, and they would be, our wife, or the 2 becomes 1. Of course, the 2 becomes 1, and we have done this. And wouldn't it be interesting as well to see that the 2 would become that 1 as in 7. We could see that, because this is why the scriptures have said we also have the spirit of sound mind. So they become 1. They have won. They become present, because they are present with each other to explore each other. So The God who he owned the contract. He won the contract, he owned it, and he was present with it. So basically, this is the contract for creating man in his own image and likeness. But we do see that he created he, him, he created he, them, he created male, he created female after his likeness, her likeness, and so on. There were those things. Another thing that is important for us to remember, even in the script, well, not even in the scriptures, we are talking scriptural here, is that the terminologies used, for instance, he actually equals 13. This is what I have been talking about, means the incubator. This is where the incubator is. Now, in our Genesis, in our genes, in our makeup, in our nature, we know to create is that the woman is the incubator, really. There is an incubator. She is the incubator. He created. This is what we are hearing here. But the he, of course, is a derivative of she, the S, which is Mother Eve, the serpent right here. The serpent, wherever we see this S here, Mother Eve is present right there. Now, I want to keep this short, and the eureka I had that I really want to speak about is really to do with 13 and really to do with the number 8. So I'm feeling now that it's best I keep this separate, like I go with the flow, so to speak, because I've just put Mother Eve's symbol here, so I'm believing the energy is really guiding me here, because I want to also point out in accordance with some videos that I recently did, where we have seen that the incubator here, of course, went like with the story of Christ and the disciples, where they came to agreement on an equal sign or equal spirit, and forming the bee, which is the bond, which is the bucket, which is the basket, and all the bees that we can think of. When we get to this, we could see that the whole formation of this bee here really comes in line with the number 8, which is naught as well. And of course, naught is also equals 13. So we see the story that I really want to elaborate here is that 8, or God, for instance, God, when we do God, which is 6, of course we see 6 here, and 4, adding this together give us 17. 17, 1 plus 7 equals 8. So this is what I really want to show, how, for instance, we do not want to recognize ourselves as God. This is 1. How, for instance, number 8, when you get to see yourself as God, you are really you have graduated to the highest in that sense, or graduation of your spiritual ascension. This is where you have graduated, you have seen. This is where I think it was Job who said, now I have seen God's face. So this is Jacob or Joseph, Jacob, I think. So this is where it is important we see how numerology as a tool helps us to recognize that. In short, in this numerical term that we are using here, we could see 6 equals, the 0 equals 6 here. But this is where at this 6 we are human, we are the man, we are the woman, but we have not, and this we have not recognized ourselves going through the motion of taking that rise. It's like you are a being thrown in the deep of the waters. You are still that being, but when you are able to keep yourself afloat and you are able to vibrate and move and rise to the surface of that water, then you are at a state of being able to say, I am alive. You because you have faced the other side of what life could seem like. If you didn't make it to the surface, you were faced with that, you were faced with death. So some people would say, oh, I saw my death. But however, I paddled up to the surface and now I am alive. So you have graduated. In that sense, you have seen God. This is just an analogy here. So do join me on the working and numbers and how we are able to actually see ourselves on this journey of I said actualizing self-love because I started this as the journey of self-love, and it is a journey of self-love. When we get to loving ourselves, then we understand how to love the other. That's another thing, because loving ourselves and loving the other, we become one. Man and wife. Oh, the 7 and 7. Okay, they would just like there were two sets of sevens in creation. There's a lot going on. I'm excited about all this. So I'm hoping you join me again. And may I thank you for watching. And if you like this presentation, please give us a like and do subscribe as well if you haven't subscribed yet, and share, of course, because this is really a delicious journey. And I tend to use delicious because it feels like that for me. It's feeling me inside. It's nurturing, it's nurturing, it's strengthening, it's empowering. And that's what Mother Eve wants us to recognize, that we can actually feed ourselves on this deliciousness that she is presenting to us. Namaste.